need something real little, like something fun.
Yeah,
But then on the other hand,
I just blow things up.
I don't see really good.
Yeah, see, before I'm,
check out the
before I'm
podcast?
great and medium, it's
Did you
just
check out the
fun,
podcast?
fun.
Glasses in the car.
I'm going to.
It's not
But
bad.
at least I'm not gonna fib and say I did when I didn't.
I prefer you.
Because his mom's I love him dearly, but still not the same. He's 13 going on 14.
That's a tough age, especially
He doesn't want
nowadays.
to, I do
Right.
take him out, so he thinks that.
My girls go
She's in the budget advisory committee.
They're all,
She has she's like a CFO.
and when Martin went to college, they were used to that because they were doing all their work
Call
until
to
20.
order the July 15th, 2024 meeting of the Tarpon Springs Planning and Zoning Board. It's 6:32. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Seaman,
Here.
Mr. Kouskoudas,
Here.
Mr. Vesey,
Here.
Ms. Francis,
Here.
Mr. Rockline,
Here,
Ms. Early,
Here.
Ms. Swenson.
Here.
Mr. Zambellis is out today.
All right. I'll ask Mr. Vesey to do the Pledge of Allegiance and invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm not feeling very evocative tonight, but I did have some thoughts that were pleasant and fun as I drove up Safford to today's meeting at City Hall. It was edge to edge, the entire length, in full bloom of a prettiest yellow flower that happens to be a personal favorite of mine. It's a peanut, and it just was fun that in the tumultuous world that we're in right now, that we could be full of flower and so nice, and a testament to how hard everyone within the city, not just the volunteers, us that get to come and go, do a little bit and then disappear, but those that stay edge to edge every day. If you haven't been down Safford, I encourage you to go down and look at how pleasant our city is. That's it.
Amen.
Beautiful.
Thank everyone for attending the City of Tarpon Springs Planning and Zoning Board meeting. There, now you can hear me. The purpose of the Planning and Zoning Boards to conduct public hearings on the items that come before us. The Planning and Zoning Board has reviewed the evidence in the agenda packet for each item on the agenda, and this evening, including the application materials in the staff report. The board will consider that evidence along with any new evidence or testimony provided at the public hearing. The board will consider all of the information provided at this hearing in accordance with the quasi-judicial procedures by which it's bound. I'll ask the city attorney to explain these quasi-judicial procedures at the appropriate time. This board uses these proceedings to judge whether the applicant meets the intent of the city's adopted comprehensive plan and future land use map and whether the application conforms to the city's currently adopted Land Development Code and Zoning Atlas. The board will render a decision on each item in the form of a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners, who will take the final action on the item. The general hearing procedure for each item called by the chair is as follows: staff presentation, applicant presentation, affected party presentation if there are any, public input, staff and applicant rebuttal, and finally board motion, discussion, and vote. Item 3 on our agenda now is the quasi-judicial announcement and swearing in of speakers. If our attorney would share that with us now at this time, please.
Chair, if I might interrupt, forgive me. I would like to introduce Mr. Dickman, who's just joined us.
Thank
Yes.
you. It's
Good
nice to be
catch.
here. Thank you for that introduction. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you for being with us tonight.
Okay, happy to do it. Okay, so I'm going to read the quasi-judicial procedures. This is a quasi-judicial proceeding where the Planning and Zoning Board acts in a quasi-judicial rather than legislative capacity. At a quasi-judicial hearing, it is not the board's function to make law, rather to apply the law that has already been established. In a quasi-judicial hearing, the board is required by law to make findings of fact based upon the evidence presented at the hearing and apply those findings of fact to previously established criteria contained in the code in order to make a legal decision regarding the application before it. The board may consider evidence at this hearing that the law considers competent, substantial, and relevant to the issues. If competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has met the criteria established in the code, then the board is required by law to find in favor of the applicant. By the same token, if the competent, substantial, and relevant evidence at the hearing demonstrates that the applicant has failed to meet the criteria established in the code, then the board is required by law to find against the applicant. So, Mr. Chair, there's a couple things the board needs to do before they get started. One is ex parte disclosures of any of the items, and then we'll swear in the witnesses. So if anybody has any conflicts or any disclosures, if you don't have an ex parte disclosure, just say no contact, no disclosures.
No.
Okay, so everyone has said no. Then I will swear, anybody is here, do you want me to, excuse me, Chair, is it the practice to do it for both items, or you want me to swear everybody in at the same time?
Normally, I swear everybody that
All
wants
right.
us to speak at the beginning.
Very good. So if anybody's here to speak, including our planner here, is going to testify here today in front of the board, please stand, raise your right hand. Do you swear to affirm or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, thank you very much. The witnesses are sworn in. Was there anything else you want me to go over this procedure, how this is going to work? So staff introduces the item and gives any recommendations, any issues that might relate to the application. Then the applicant will come forward and do any questions of staff at that time would be appropriate. Then the applicant will do their presentation, their case in chief, and then questions to the applicant will be appropriate at that time. Make sure you state your name, address, et cetera, whether you agree with the staff report or not. Members of the public opposing the application will come forward. If there are any members of the public in support of the application will come forward. If there are any, then applicant is usually given rebuttal time if necessary, and then staff's closing statement and summary. And of course, finally, most importantly, the board will then do their deliberation based on the evidence that you've heard and the criteria in the code. Does that make?
Thank you. Yeah. That brings us to item number 4 on our agenda tonight, application 24-33. That's ordinance 2024-04, relating to rezoning of a property located at 433 East Harrison Street. Does the staff have a presentation for us?
Yes, thank you. Pat McNeese, Planning Supervisor. This is an application from Habitat for Humanity for a property located at 433 East Harrison Street. This is for rezoning of that property. It's in the residential medium future land use map category. That is not going to be changing. The current zoning is residential multifamily district, and the proposed zoning is R60 1 and 2 family residential. It's about 1/3 of an acre in size. It's currently vacant, and the applicant proposes to divide this parcel into 2 conforming lots in the R60 district once it's rezoned. The property, just as a side note, and there's information in your packet, the property was conveyed to the city, from the city to the applicant, and there is a special warranty deed that restricts the uses, proposed uses to the mission and purpose of Habitat for Humanity. Otherwise, the property reverts back to the city, so that information is in your packet. The property is on the northwest corner of South Levis and Harrison, across from the Fundamental School in Dorset Park. The area is basically, we'll look at the zoning map in a minute, but you've got single family adjacent to the parcel. Some of these properties around are apartments, mostly housing authority properties, and then there's more single family up in this area. Again, this is just an oblique aerial of the site. It's vacant. We'll see the proposed lot split in a minute, but basically, as you can see, the lots on the street were oriented perpendicular to the street with a long axis going to the back. This site was originally 3 lots that did the same thing, went back to basically behind these apartments. It was combined into 1 parcel in the past, and then this property just northeast of the site with the house on it was split off, oriented the other way. So, and that property is addressed on Levis Avenue, obviously. So what's left is this parcel on the corner. So here's the proposed split showing, if you look at these dashed lines, you'll see that was originally 3 lots that north, I'm not sure, 30 feet or so, I'd have to look, was split off to form, after that parcel was combined, it was split off to form another lot and was built on. So what the applicant has left is 1 parcel here. The left side shows the west parcel proposed, and the right side here shows the east parcel proposed. The current residential multifamily zoning wants a 7,000 square foot minimum lot for single family. So the idea is to rezone this to R60, which allows a 6,000 square foot minimum lot size. So that will allow 2 lots. This is just a kind of a concept depiction of that the applicant proposes to put 2 single families, 1 on each lot, oriented to East Harrison Street. Again, this is just a Google Street View context of that corner. So this isn't RM zoning. It's obviously surrounded by R60 zoning and other RM zoning. This is an established, stable, platted, older plat neighborhood. This strip was platted in about 1961, where these lots are, but some of these plats are much older, as you know. So this is an area that is appropriate for infill of these types of property, single-family housing. So the proposed R60 category is consistent with the residential medium future land use map category. So RM, that it is now, is consistent with the residential medium future land use. R60 is also consistent with that future land use category. So this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The available uses are appropriate and compatible with the surrounding area. Again, this is infill with 2 single-family, affordable / kind of workforce level housing in an established neighborhood. As you may have observed, Habitat has been very active around the city, and they are here this evening to answer any questions. But these newer Habitat homes are providing some newer properties that help with the stability of these neighborhoods. So this is just another one that they're going to be doing. The R60 designation, again, provides for those infill housing opportunities, and the infrastructure is in place to serve this property. The capacity and the availability are both there. So staff is recommending approval of ordinance 2024-04. I will say there is a minor typo in the ordinance title, I think it is. It's highlighted in your packet. It just has the wrong acronym for residential multifamily in it. So we'll correct that when it goes to the Board of Commissioners. And that completes staff presentation. Do you have any questions?
I do have a question.
Okay.
This is not public housing, this is private housing, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so my question is, first of all, we need, just as a statement, we do need more affordable housing. But was there, what was the reasoning behind not putting public housing there on that property that it was owned by the city?
Well, I mean, so the city itself is not in the business of doing public housing. It would have had...
Or the housing authority?
Right. It would have had to been transferred, I suppose, to the housing authority. I would not know if that was discussed. You know, it's limited really in what it can be used for. Now, under the residential medium category, technically, with the third of an acre there, they could be allocated up to 5 units. If you're going to put 5 units, you're probably going to have to vault stormwater and lots of other things.
No,
I don't know if it was practical for more than just the 2 units.
Okay.
And I don't know if Housing Authority is doing single family or if that was discussed.
I was just wondering why they didn't look at public housing as opposed to private housing, which is fine. I mean, it's addressing the affordability, but I was just curious. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff?
I had just a couple. What I like about the agenda portal is that you can see the technical review comments, which I'm sure were always in the packets before, I guess.
We used to add them,
Right.
and we were told that the packets were too big, so we didn't. Now we're adding all the rounds of TRC
Because you can
review.
put the
So we've
subcategories
gone
in.
back to.
I appreciate them, so I was looking
Yeah.
through those. And you are the planning department, like representative at the technical review committee, is that right?
Yeah.
It's not Renee, you go to those meetings, right?
Yeah,
Okay. And how many times did this application go to the TRC?
this went once.
Just once? And then the only comments I saw in there were just yours, is that right? Like the 3 comments?
Yeah.
Okay. So there were no major issues in TRC?
No. And I should have mentioned, I think we had 41 mailed notices.
Oh, yeah,
I'll check that.
thank you I did ask for that before, thank you. And no emails or anything?
No responses. Thanks.
That's it, thank you.
I have one comment, and my comment is, you know, with respect to the public housing versus the private housing, being from Chicago in the inner city, I think private housing is fantastic because it gives people, if I had been able to live in a single family home growing up, I would have been in heaven. And I think it brings to people the ownership and the desire and the idea to pass this on through the generations of their families. So, all for it.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, would the applicant like to make a presentation? If so, approach the microphone and state your name and address.
Hey everyone, just want to introduce myself. I'm Cesar Figueredo with Habitat for Humanity. We are over at 1355 49th Street North in Clearwater, Florida, 33762, and I have no comment.
All right.
Can I ask the applicant to come 1 second? I just want to get something on the record. So you heard the staff report and everything like that. So
Yes.
are you adopting and agree with that staff report?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was incorporated in your testimony.
Yes, sir.
Do any of the board members have questions for the applicant?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
What other buildings has Habitat for Humanity built in Tarpon?
Yeah, so we've recently done a lot of work in Tarpon. We've done 3 homes, 2 homes on Levis. We've done 3 single-family homes on North Avenue South. We've built on Diston. We've built in a lot of areas, especially within the last few years. And the main thing that we concentrate on is bringing folks in from the Tarpon Springs area to become homeowners. So you're born in Tarpon, you are raised in Tarpon, and you will stay in Tarpon as part of our initiative.
How do you accomplish that? I'm just curious.
Well, it's part of our recruiting. It's what we do as far as what she had mentioned earlier. In that special warranty deed, we specifically recruit folks in the Tarpon Springs area.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, do you have any relationship with these homeowners after they actually occupy these?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually have a ton of classes throughout the program that helps them become a homeowner as far as how to be a good neighbor, a lot of financial classes to get through, and then a lot of post-closing classes that do help with home repair, with, you know, those things that you need after you close on your home. Yes, ma'am.
You know, I never followed up on it, but was it Habitat for Humanity that had that free training set up for
Yeah.
repair in a tent-like area? Was that you?
In a tent-like area. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Was maybe a year or 2 ago. And it had a big sign, you know?
Interesting. I'm not quite sure.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
thought
All
maybe
good.
that
All
was
good.
you.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant?
I don't have a question for the applicant, but if I may, I do have a question or two for staff. Could we go back to that?
Yeah.
Okay. You could sit down, and I don't think anybody else has a question for you.
All right. Thank you for your time.
So, Ms. McNeese, this property appears, looking through the history, to be challenged, and that it's been one thing, it's been another, and it still is vacant. We're mowing it, we're taking care of it. And now we're about to take it off the boards of a multifamily and make it single family. Notwithstanding the goodness that's coming from Habitat for Humanity, but there's a reason that it was multifamily to begin with. What, in your opinion, and you alluded to it earlier on a previous question, what makes this particular parcel so difficult to develop? Because it's in such a good location, adjacent to a school, adjacent to a park. Why does it, in your opinion, stay vacant? What's gone on there?
Well, if you looked at the board packet from the transfer, so this property was the subject, I gotta look, but I want to say the Masonic Lodge, somebody had it. There was past code enforcement, past liens, I believe. I think maybe some past demolition work the city did. So it wasn't that it's been vacant all this time. It went through a process where the city basically ended up with it. So, we've had it ever since then, and you're probably going to ask me when that was, whatever. It's in the history, that board packet history. But, so now we have, a corner piece, which basically there were 3 platted lots there. And then it went to 1. If this is approved, we'll go back to 3 lots, not as originally platted, but the one on the north and the 2. Like I said, with the residential medium density that's assigned, it would be a challenge. I mean, the applicant we did talk to them back and forth about they wanted to put 3 houses, but there really was no way to get, because of our minimum lot sizes, there was no way to get to the 3. Our 60 is the smallest lot you can do. After that, if you're looking at a multifamily, you're looking at an apartment or maybe townhomes, and like I said, it's only 1/3 of an acre. It's on a corner. There are challenges, and I don't know that Habitat is in the business of doing townhomes or apartments. I think it was brought up, why didn't the Housing Authority? I really would have to research whether that discussion was held or not, but Housing Authority, I will say my experience with them is they're pretty definitive about what they will and will not deal with and do. They know what they want to do and can do. I don't know if this was discussed with them. I'd have to find out if that was something. They do have apartments in the area, but like I said,
Pat,
I don't know if that answers your question.
It kind of does. I'm trying to pin you down a little bit harder. Is that, again, I'll just go back. We're about to remove 1/3 of an acre in an area that really, I think the desire, I'm only interpreting what I see, was to be multifamily, not single family. That's what I just read there. And we're about to say, hey, no multifamily forever, notwithstanding the value of this project.
Right.
But
And that,
what I might hear from you as planner and the expert is that this parcel really doesn't fit multifamily, is that there's no chance someone's going to squeeze 4 or 5 units on it, and
Well,
its
yeah,
best and highest use is 2 single families.
yeah, I won't say there's no chance. It would be difficult. That street frontage is single family. So yeah, that portion of the RM, which was lumped in that zoning with Housing Authority, it's apartments, it's built under density. You're right, all those single families on East Harrison are built basically under density. But yeah, it would be costly. First of all, you'd have to figure out, because once you trip, the 3rd unit, you're doing everything, stormwater, the whole, parking, all that stuff on the parcel. And it would be challenging. I don't know how the neighboring single families would take it, or if that would be an issue for them. That might be, compatibility may be an issue. It's an allowance by right, but that could come up. So we feel
Pat, if I
like
can, Pat,
we feel like infill with single family is appropriate for this corner.
you mentioned the code enforcement. I just want to clarify, is this one of the properties that the BOC gave a significant reduction for the Habitat to buy? I think that might answer some of these questions during the code enforcement lien. That might answer some of these questions as to why it took so long to rezone this property. I believe that they did buy some properties, and that was a very significant issue at the BOC meetings. That I think might answer some of this, is why it's been sitting and not matching the property around it for so long. And it was kind of controversial at the time, so I think that's the reason. So we don't have to keep going back and forth.
No, the city owned it, so the city deeded it, so
Right, but they
could have deeded it to,
no, but you did mention the code enforcement lien, right? Is that?
that's
Yeah.
how the city
I mean, I
acquired
think
it.
you might have some insight into this. There's a few properties that Habitat bought. I remember one of the commissioners was very against giving them the discount on the lien, so I don't know how it's relevant
Yeah,
at this
the-
point, but,
So,
It's actually part of the package.
Right,
You
so-
know,
right,
so,
yeah.
so a lot of it's there.
right.
yeah, in your packet is the BOC agenda item. The discussion about the liens, and that discussion went on in 2010.
Pardon me?
I
What-
did not
what year?
research the history.
2010.
That's what I'm
2010.
That's how long these liens last.
Right, I did not research, and it may be in here, exactly when, so when you lien someone's property, and the attorney can probably help, but you don't get it right away, right? It takes a process and a long time for the city to end up with these things. I don't know exactly, and I don't know if Caesar does, I doubt it, but
they're
at some
like 20
point, the
years.
city ended up with it.
At the end of the day, if the housing authority wanted the property, they would have asked for the property. And since they've not reached out, if they waived or didn't want the property and the city still owned the property, because if you look at the deed, it's coming from the city, going to Habitat for Humanity. It's the use of the property that we're discussing today, and
This is like true affordable housing,
true
not,
affordable housing.
not-
So I think that goes part and parcel of one of the questions or one of the discussions we had as far as our comprehensive land use was looking at places where you could have affordable housing, and this seems
Yeah.
to fit right into that target.
And I believe Habitat does, you might want to ask them, so is it restricted by the city with a covenant to affordable? No, but Habitat does have, I believe, standards regarding the resale of the property, anything like that might happen that goes toward that end, if you would like Caesar to explain.
No, they
those
would have
maybe.
sold it to Habitat to Humanity or given it to Habitat to Humanity had it not gone for affordable housing. I'm sure the city would not have done that for a profit motive. So.
Right.
In Habitat, do you still require the owners to actually contribute to the building and work to complete this so that they feel the ownership? And I would say most people in this town, and I know a lot of them on that side, they would rather live in a home than a multifamily residence, and they will be your better citizens and contribute more to the city. Not that the others don't, but anyway, you do bring them in, and they have to work with you. They have to buy into it.
Willingness to partner. They
Yep.
have to have a willingness to partner.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion when it gets.
I'm still questioning, Ms., and please, I'm going to beg everyone's patience, please. I'm going to beg everyone's patience, because I have a direct line of questioning that doesn't involve the applicant. Okay, Ms. McNeese, and here's my concern. I love the project, just like everybody else does. We've got a parcel that has been abandoned, has cost the city a fortune for the last 15 years. Fine. We're about to give it away to Habitat for Humanity. Great. But directly adjacent to this parcel is true, and I'm trying to look at this map real careful, and if you would pull up the map that gives us our zoning, RMs and R60s, is that directly adjacent is true multifamily, if I'm not mistaken, where we've got those two-story townhome jobbies.
Yeah, they're
Okay, public.
apartments.
Super. And then this is a line that those have been around me long enough, is that I don't like to second guess the decisions that were made in the past. There was a reason that this entire block is orange, residential multifamily, not R60. So now we're about to carve out one parcel and turn it into R60, if I'm not mistaken. Would that be right, Ms. McNeese?
On this block, yeah.
Right, so the thing circled in yellow is suddenly gonna change colors where everything around it is still RM. Would that be right?
Yes, in that block.
Okay, super. So here's the idea, or what I'm trying to drive at, is that, well, if we're gonna do one, and then, of course, staff said, hey, they're all single-family residences there, and they might have a beef with there being multifamily, but I'll go back. There was a reason that it was atlased and zoned RM.
But if
to
you look
begin
at the
with.
definition of RM and R60, they both contain single-family housing on them.
I actually wasn't asking for your opinion.
Well, you got it.
So I'm just concerned and want to make it clear that what we're doing is we're taking away and carving into zoning that someone before us said, this is what we want here across from the school and the park. Now, what we have is something else. Agreed. What we also have is more or less an abandoned lot that the city maintains and is about to give away. And again, I'm not going to discount that this isn't a terrific project, but our comprehensive plan delineates that we're really in the business of multifamily, especially in certain areas, that we need more density in certain areas. And this is a terrific project, but it actually, in my opinion, and the little that I know, goes against a lot of the things that we're trying to do, which is improve density. And even though it's inconvenient to put 3, 4, or 5 units on this corner lot, that's really the intent. And we're about to take it away, give it away, headache gone, and now we're gonna have 2 more single-family homes there. Fine. Not discounting all the terrific work that Habitat Humanity does, but that's not our job. Our job is to evaluate the comprehensive plan, the intent of planning and zoning, and go, hey, is this what's really supposed to be there? Across from the school, is there supposed to be single-family homes, or should there be 4 smaller multifamily homes? Exactly what is just across the way. And sure, the housing authority hasn't bought it, but that's not relevant. What's relevant is it actually a good fit? And should the rest of those houses have been, or should everything else be multifamily? That's it. I just wanted to point that out and say, hey, we're about to pull a plug and pull away a lot, and in 10 years, someone might come back and go, what the heck were we thinking? We don't have enough multifamily. We need more, and we just took it off the map.
But I would
Are
argue
there-
that is exactly our job, as it's literally being proposed to us to make that decision tonight. So
Agreed.
it is literally our job tonight to make that decision.
Yes, it is.
So, I mean,
Are there members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Please approach the microphone and state your name and address.
My name is Vince Hugh. The reason I stood up before is when you addressed wondering what people that live on that street think. I live at 407 East Harrison Street. I'm directly across from the school, and I live in a single family unit. We have, I think, either 6 or 7 single family units. And when you look at that and you're looking to the east and you're saying it doesn't fit into the east, I'm looking to the west. It fits in right with our houses there. I would love to have Habitat at the end of the block there. It would complete the block. I've been there 8 years and it's just sat there doing nothing. And now we have somebody willing to step up who does a great job. I just worked on a Habitat house earlier this year. And the landscaping, I was on the landscaping crew. And the house looked, I would have traded my house for it. It looked that good. And the people were out there working who were gonna own the house. So I can attest to the quality of the work. I can attest to the fact that it would fit perfectly in our neighborhood as far as my opinion, and perfect to be right across the school, from the school. And then the only thing else that we need in that block is a speed bump. And I don't know if that's, I was told that you can't have that in residential areas, but I would think they would make an exception
That's not for us.
in a school zone. Okay, I can check later into that, but I wanted to go on the record for that while I was here. But the big thing is, gosh, I say welcome to the neighborhood. So.
Thank you. Is any other members of the public wishing to comment on this item? All right, seeing none, we will close public comments. Does the staff have any rebuttal or closing comments?
No, I would just say, we've seen applications like this in the past. We've had a couple others up near City Hall. I understand Mr. Vessey's point on the RM. I will just enter into the record and reiterate in my staff report that the residential medium future land use map category states that it's intended for areas in close proximity to urban activity centers, which it says, and areas that are to be developed in a medium density residential manner. So it does sort of contemplate or anticipate a mix of housing types. You'll notice on the block to the east that they went ahead and split that block into RM and R60. That was not done with this one. So to your point, I see what you're saying. At some point, just like future land use, but maybe a little less so, but when you're doing a zoning map, you know, you're trying not to have too much of a checkerboard map. So this was roped into the RM, but I do understand the point that's being made. So.
All right,
That's it.
I'm sorry.
That's it.
Okay. Does the applicant have any rebuttal or final comments? Okay, we'll bring the item back to the board for consideration. I need a motion and a second, and then we can have board discussion if there is some.
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2433. If the
Yeah, why
city
don't I go
attorney
ahead
wants
and
to
read
go ahead
the
and
ordinance into the record for you. Ordinance 2024-04, an ordinance of the city of Tarpon Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning atlas for .31 acres, more or less, of real property located at 433 East Harrison Street on the northwest corner of Harrison Street and South Levis Avenue from residential multifamily
Yeah, that's what it
district
should, that's
to-
the typo.
Yeah,
Sorry.
right, that was, it's too, all right, so it is residential multifamily, right?
That's correct.
District to R60, 1 and 2 family residence district, providing for findings and providing for effective date. Thank you.
And there are no conditions, right, that's,
No, zoning.
And I would second that motion.
All right. Do we have any board discussion?
I like, Mr. Vesey, I agree with you with regard to we don't want a spot zone. And I think that was the point that you were trying to make is we got to get away from them. We're not spot zoning, but I'm familiar with the neighborhood. And there is a mixture of single family homes that are adjacent to this property. And had it been all, whether it's multifamily, then I think we would have to take a step back and visit this. But the fact that it's mixed, and I don't know if that zoning change was, because those homes have been there for a long time. So I don't know if that zoning change came after that when they did it to satisfy public housing. And that block may have just been incorporated in it at the time. But having single-family homes is actually consistent with the block that lot sits on. So that's my thinking. So I agree with your concern that we're not spot zoning. So, but I just thought I'd explain it that way.
and I think we had 41 notices go out, and nobody came to object, or nobody wrote an email to object. One resident nearby did come in, and, obviously, point out the fact on the other side that there's single-family homes, and I honestly can't imagine too many people that would send their kids to a school that would prefer a multifamily place over a single-family home. I would pick that any day of the week. And Habitat for Humanity, I just recently, graduated from Leadership Pinellas, and they work very closely with them. And that is one of, since, for years, that has been a focus for Leadership Pinellas, is affordable, the housing in Pinellas. And that, we hear about affordable housing under the guise of the Live Local Act, which is just, what we know is just just developers making money who are just going to throw these things up, right? This is true affordable housing, is how, the layman would interpret it without knowing what affordable housing really is. So I think, I understand, I know and I appreciate that Mr. Vesey always sticks to the, why are we rezoning things? Because it was there for a reason. And we need to always think about that, but I think at the same time, we have to think about, common sense, and this is what the community really obviously clearly wants, and this is for the betterment of the city. And no one has come to say that they don't want it. So that's something to factor in. So that's, the reason for that. And the other thing, the Tarpon residents, that the fact that they do that is important to me, because I have grown up here my entire life, and I have multiple friends who grew up that come into this city and work every single day, and every single day they drive back to Pasco, every day, 30 minutes, okay? They work in this city, and all their friends and their family are in this city, and they could not afford to live here. And then we're making all this affordable housing for these people who do not live here. And that's, some of these people work for the city. They work for our city, and they can't afford to live here. So the fact that they're looking out for our own residents, and I think that's important in every application, is what does this bring to our community? It keeps our residents here, which will bring economic vitality. They'll keep, that keeps our community growing. So I think that's a really important factor that people have to think about, which is not included in affordable housing, no density, no height requirement, low economic buildings, so that's all.
And I just want to say, I share Mr. Vesey's concern, but I have to look at the neighborhood, and it's a stable neighborhood. It's built out. I don't see it ever changing significantly to be multifamily. So I also can't see any harm in allowing the project to proceed. Any other comments?
Well, just that I think as a single-family homeowner, you're more of a stakeholder than you are just a tenant, whether you're temporary or more permanent. I think it helps to build the community. I think they become part of the fabric, and they tend to contribute more so than a transient type resident. So while the change needs to be evaluated and should be guarded, I think in this case it's warranted, and it's beneficial to both the future homeowners and to the city itself. So I welcome it.
And I think everybody knows my passion here. And I did want to say one thing. When I look at the review criteria under rezoning, under your charts, it says the amendment is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Tarpon Springs Comprehensive Plan. So, I just wanted to clarify that it was, and good luck.
If I may, the two things I will confess that became immediately important to me were the fact that they were going to build these homes, these single-family residences, and first, for Tarpon residents. They want a Tarpon resident to live there. That was huge. And then the citizen that stood up and vouched for the quality of the builds that he's been aware of, that was big for me. If Habitat for Humanity is going to build a quality single-family home, that's huge. So those are my comments. Those two things were really important to me.
All right, if there's no further comments, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Swenson?
Yes.
Ms. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Rockline?
Yes.
Ms. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Vesey?
Yes.
Mr. Kouskoudis?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes. All right. That brings us to item number 5 on our agenda, application 23-156, ordinance 2024-23. This is site plan approval for property located at 599 Island Drive. Does the staff have a presentation for us?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, it might be better if I just read the resolution into the record right away now and just get that over with. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Tarpon Springs, Florida, approving application 20-156, requesting site plan approval to construct a marine-related industrial facility, parentheses, commercial fishing operations, close parentheses, on 0.2 acres, more or less, of property located at 599 Island Drive on the west side of Island Drive between Hill Street and Dedosens. I'll get the hang of it, trust me. Boulevard, including 3,490 square feet of existing and new building floor area and located on the SDC Marine Industrial / Commercial transect of the Sponge Dock and Community Redevelopment Area Plan, providing for findings, providing for approval of standards by warrant, providing for conditions, and providing for an effective date. Thank you. And I assume that the disclosures everyone gave at the beginning also applied to this. If not, please make any disclosures you have now.
Okay, thank you. This is for Luggers Backup LLC. The property is located at 599 Island Drive. It's got about a fifth of an acre of uplands, and then it's got some privately owned bay bottom adjacent, or river bottom, sorry. This is in the Sponge Docks Character District of the Special Area Plan, and in the SDC, so Special District C, Marine Industrial / Commercial Transect. The proposal is for commercial fishing, offloading, and distribution, and the applicant and his team are here this evening. So this is located at the west end of basically the Sponge Docks Character District over on Island Drive here. This is a little bit more zoomed in and shows the transects. So this is the SDC transect, so this is the special district that these properties are in here. The kind of orange color is the more commercial and tourist-oriented transect nearby, and then as you get south and east, you're getting into a little bit more residential uses mixed in. This is the site on Island Drive. The applicant actually owns this site and a site to the north. The site to the north is used for commercial fishing or marine, basically marine tourism, and there's a restaurant there. The site, the applicant's site that is the subject of tonight's project has an existing single-family home on it. It has been used continuously for commercial fishing operations. Looking back for a minute at that transect, so basically the SDC transect, what it replaced when the smart code went in, a lot of what it replaced was those waterfront development zoning. So this one was WD1, so those old waterfront developments to retain working waterfront. And part of what they allowed, and the SD continues to allow, was you could live in a single-family home and run commercial fishing off your property. So the remaining WD zoning still do that in other parts of the shoreline here. So that's what this was. The applicant proposes to convert that single-family building into accommodating an office and storage. This is an oblique aerial of the site showing the site to be developed. This is the area to the north. I'll show you in a minute, but the applicant did receive approval from the city for multi-slip docking facility and maintenance dredging along these properties. And I think county approval is pending. I'm not sure. The applicant can probably tell you the status of that. There is a single-family home adjacent to the south-southeast. Down here further south is the, I think it's the Lockhart Seafood. There's the retail seafood down here. Over to the east is the clubhouse for the High and Dry Marina. Just across the street from the site is a parking lot. And there are a couple of single-family homes there. I believe one might be a tourist home. So that's kind of the mix that you have in the area. But basically, this area of Island Drive is still working waterfront and commercial fishing. So this is a picture of the site prior. I don't know if the applicant owned it, but this kind of shows you the prior use on the site. So you had a single-family home being used as such, and trap storage and commercial fishing activities. The applicant has purchased the site and cleaned it off, and it's sitting, I believe they've said in their narrative they've gutted the single family, and they'll be remodeling the inside of that for their needs. So they are ready to improve the property with their structure, infrastructure, and site work. This picture to the left is from the street. The picture on the right is from the back of the property. This just shows the single family and the two single families adjacent. So there is a chain link fence. It's kind of hard to see up there, but there is a chain link fence in their backyard. Other than that, there was never really any buffering from that commercial fishing activity there. And the applicant proposes a 6-foot privacy fence. So that's just some information on that. Just to illustrate kind of the area of Island Drive that we're looking at, and maybe just go back. So basically what we're looking at, I should have marked the streets in here, but is that curve coming around on Island Drive from Dodecanese and going south-southeast. So basically what I've shown is we do have a truck route down there that's labeled as such. This was just taken one morning, weekday morning, on the docks, typical box truck type traffic. I believe this tractor trailer is fixed right now, but typical traffic in this area. As I said, commercial fishing is still going on in this area. These pictures were taken last week. And again, this mailbox goes to the adjacent house. So you can see that that is a marked truck route on Island Drive. This shows the survey. Again, the applicant owns Bay Bottom adjacent to these parcels. And this again had the single family. It had some paving on it, but mostly it was just loose sediment and gravel. Or it is right now. This is the site plan. So these piers, individual piers, are the piers that I mentioned that the city has approved. And there will be maintenance dredging to maintain the water depth there to what it used to be. Maintenance dredging means it was deeper before and you're putting it back. Related to that, there has been a bit of sedimentation into this bank in the river. I believe it was a previous owner, and the applicant can confirm, that had a boat ramp in this area. They filled it in and they put in a seawall, but it was not a good design, I'll just say that. We have a stormwater outfall on Island Drive, an inlet, and there is an outfall here that has been releasing sediment for a while since that bad seawall installation took place. And the applicant is proposing, I don't know if a permit's been pulled, it may even be under construction, he can answer that, to repair the seawall appropriately and coordinating with the city to correct that outfall so it doesn't leak a lot of sediment. As well, we have a site plan with some paving for truck loading and forklift use and handicap space. The gray area will be gravel, number 57 stone large gravel, and there will be improvements to capture the stormwater and filter it and improve the stormwater situation on site. Again, the former home will be converted to an office with an ADA restroom and storage. They will be adding a pole barn, all open on the side. I didn't put it in the presentation, but I do have, it's in your packet, and I do have a graphic depiction of what the pole barn will look like. That pole barn will be a maximum of 16 feet high, which is lower than the adjacent residence, so it's fairly compatible with the area. We'll also have containers that will be, well, the applicant can describe that, but that's I think some of them are refrigerated. There's going to be ice generated for use by the boats and for packing and storing the product. The applicant will be landscaping up front. If you remember the former picture, we had a dumpster sitting out here on the street. The applicant will be creating a dumpster enclosure and dumpster pad to appropriately house that up to code. So as far as the review criteria, the proposed project is consistent with the Sponge Docks character district of the special area plan. And I just want to point out a couple of things. Well, just one thing. One of the statements in that character district is that it will continue to support the working waterfront and tourist trade. As far as the zoning district, the marine-related industrial facility, which is technically what this is by Smart Code, it's defined as, this is the only district, SDC, where it's a use allowed by right. So this fits that definition and that use. This application is in compliance with the Land Development Code and the Smart Code. We have one warranty, which I'll talk about in a minute. I'm sorry, one warrant, not warranty. Okay. So the property has been used for commercial fishing for several years. It's the addition of the buildings and additional floor area that brings it to you as a site plan. So the use is continuing, but this triggered the site plan process, the improvements to the property. The facilities impacts are provided, I think, on page 5 of your staff report. This is consistent with the city's concurrency requirements, and there will be no adverse impacts on city facilities. We have the capacity and the infrastructure to serve the project, and the project is expected to meet the city building codes and flood codes. We do have one design standard that is determined by warrant, and just to remind you, the Smart Code allows warrants, which are really standards, flexible standards, so it's doesn't rise to a variance that would go to the Board of Adjustment. This is a flexibility that the Board of Commissioners really has given staff and you to look at and see if it fits the intent of the Smart Code, that those standards can be determined. Parking for industrial uses, and for this one in particular, in the Smart Code is determined by warrant. So, also want to remind the board that, as you know, the Smart Code is really more of a form-based code. It takes its cues from the form around it to define what the property's going to going to look like, if it's compatible, and so on, more so than the use. For special districts, which this is one, SD, the special district consists of a defining element, and there are areas that exhibit unique character that does not conform to the requirements of any transect zone or combination of zones. So it's more driven by the use. That's stated out of the SMART code intent. So we do have one standard, which is parking. The applicant has provided a narrative. There will be no public visiting the property, no retail sales, none of that. The applicant has stated that there will be about probably 2 employees most of the time. 4 parking spaces are provided, including the ADA space, and staff feels that that is sufficient given the limited room on the site and maneuverability, and really primarily that it meets the needs of the applicant and the use. The SMART code does say that the defining element is the permitted use. The permitted use guides the physical form. So we feel that that parking proposal is consistent and deserving of a warrant to approve. So staff recommends that prior to scheduling before the Board of Commissioners, the project be revised to reflect 3 things. So this went to TRC 3 times, I think I said. And it wasn't so much the use or any issues with it, it was just nailing down the details of the plans and application. I just discovered a couple discrepancies as I was writing this up for you, and staff is just asking that you go ahead and accept these discrepancies as something to be corrected before it goes to the Board of Commissioners. I will say that the first one, the acreage was incorrect on the plans. I did get the actual acreage of the uplands from the applicant and was able to correct the entire staff report, including the table, the zoning table that's on, I believe it's page 4 of your staff report. So everything in there is correct, and the applicant has already actually sent an updated set of plans, so we would just insert that in. So the actual acreage is 0.2 acres, 8,700 square feet or so. The applicant has completed a utility availability statement that wasn't complete by the time we prepared this for hearing. They're just awaiting a response from utilities, but we do know utilities are available already. The applicant has also revised the plans, and I will show you real quick what we're talking about. So there's a great inlet here. Our stormwater staff, consulting staff, wanted an extra, and we have the engineer here, he can explain what this is, but an extra skimmer baffle to, as a double protection, since this is gravel, albeit large gravel, to prevent outfall of sediments and greases and oils as much as possible into the river. So this will be a net improvement over what's going to be there now. The applicant has submitted that, and the consultant is reviewing that now. It doesn't affect the layout of the project, so we felt it was appropriate to bring it to hearing. So those 3 things need to be done, and then we have 6 conditions, which I've summarized here. I can read them verbatim if you would like me to, but I'll just summarize them. Conditions requiring meeting flood code requirements, fire code requirements, utility, pretty standard utility connection requirements that we do for everyone. Plans that are consistent with the site plan, meeting the land development code. And this one came in after your ordinance on development timing. So this applicant must pull a building permit within 6 months and keep that active. within 6 months of Board of Commissioners approval. That was a little long, I apologize. Do you have any questions?
I do. Pat. Unless I missed it, and this is coming from a position of, obviously, I'm not an environmentalist, and, well, I shouldn't say I'm not an environmental engineer or anything like that, but nothing showed me the depth of the water adjacent to this property. And I know you had said there's an allowance for maintenance dredging. I caught that somewhere. And I guess I looked at the photograph that you had, and right there, and it looked shallow to me right up adjacent to the site. So to me, and again, I'm not qualified, maybe somebody here knows, but it doesn't look deep enough, and it immediately looks like it needs dredging to me. And I guess my question that I didn't see addressed anywhere, and again, this isn't my knowledge, but what is the environmental impact of dredging?
Okay.
So,
If I could comment.
Sure.
Okay. Not just in the Anklote, but even all the tributaries that come off the Anklote, silt is always filling in. So it could have been deep. It had to have been deep, because if you look at, there's a marina there's a marina right there. And so you're constantly having to dredge the waterways regardless. And so as long as you get a dredging permit or a permit to dredge, you're permitted to dredge. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Pat, but those require certain permits before you can dredge. You just can't go and start dredging.
Right,
And
it's
so it's controlled by the Department of Environmental Protection.
EP permits
Okay,
are
so, yeah.
long and take months to get, and they go far beyond anything that the city would ever think to
Yeah.
require.
So-
So if they've got their permits, and I'm sure they can verify that, they've been through the ringer already getting that approved.
I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, thank you.
yeah,
I would,
and
before you move on, I would say, I think the dredging is a little bit of a red herring, that's not really the issue. But there
Well, what's
there
to me?
is some, well, no, I mean, no, that was a good question. But as far as the Environmental Protection Agency, they are, we do a little bit of our own research on people that, we had an RV resort that tried to apply
Right.
the same area as a local businessman who's been here for 22 years, owns the property, runs the business, has some of the same concerns about traffic around here. So I did, some research, and it looks like there's a lot, some permits from the Madeira Beach location that the applicant has through, I think, I'm not sure if it's the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Agency, that have been going on since 2009 to 2021. Sounds very similar, adjoining aggregate development type thing, because they have the bistro with the dock slip. So we're kind of getting a little bit of half of the story here for, the bistro is also, they own that as well. So that's kind of not really part of the application, but to take it on as a whole, and then looking at Madeira Beach, these are, I think pretty much from what I've done in Tarpon, we're residents here, talk to people in the area, we're kind of like local small-time fishermen here. This is going to be a humongous distribution to the U.S. I mean, this is going to be coming out of there with these trucks again. So I just think that we should make sure that, I understand this isn't conditional use, but at the same time, the same things that, and I did notice that the staff put in our presentation you strongly advised us to read the narrative in bold and in italics. And I did read that, and there were a lot of concerns about traffic.
Yep.
And I was just actually pulling up the old meetings. I couldn't find the minutes from the BOC meeting when poor Mr. Ed Smith had to suffer that night. And so I'm going to be asking some of those questions. I mean, and that's honestly just to prepare, site plan, conditional use, regardless. I'm going to be asking those questions because it's going to be due diligence. But if we're going to grill our own residents and property owners, and from what I've, found out here about this, like I said, I've talked around, and it's just kind of a big business coming into town that's not necessarily going to benefit the residents and everybody else, and it's still going to put pressure and constraints on our already intractable parking problem. Like we just, traffic problem. We do have a traffic problem with that roundabout. And it's one thing if it's going to bring, I don't know if anyone noticed, Pasco County and Holidays entertaining a RV resort, as is, I think, Newport Richie. It's multi-million-dollar residents with their big RVs that would love to spend their money in our town. Or we could have somebody who just wants to, bring some drug-addicted boaters, maybe into our town. It's possible. So I'm just saying, these are things that we have to, this is our time. I'm not going to ignore, this type of stuff. This is a big company coming into the city.
Okay, I guess that would be part of the presentation, but also to keep in mind that there's an existing seafood distribution at the west end of the Sponge Docks that I think is probably one of the largest in the Tampa Bay area.
So do we need more?
Yeah, so, I just make sure
And
that.
could I answer Ms. Dearlow's question?
All right.
And you did, FDEP. Again, this goes to Pinellas County. They do look at the environmental as well. So they look at the submerged area. They look at, is there seagrass there? Is it really maintenance dredging? They research all that. So he's got Pinellas County layer, state layer. The other clarification I want to make is this is a site plan for a use by right. It is not a conditional use.
No, I
Just want to
understand.
clarify that. Okay.
Further questions for staff?
I have a question for staff. If it is used by right, not a conditional use, thank you for clarifying that, why do they have to see us at all?
Again, the quote-unquote floor area being added. So a site plan is required when you're adding to an existing building or putting new floor area on a site. I forget what the floor area number is, but you've got an 828 square foot house and you're bringing it up to I want to say 3490 with the double stack container, the pole barn, any other containers. That kicks it into coming back for a site plan approval.
Okay, and forgive me, I lost my battery, so I lost that. So thank you for that answer, but it still strikes me as odd that something that is given by right, that's the whole idea of the area, and we've covered this on more than one occasion as part of the plan, is we're trying to encourage and retain marine industrial along this. And then I see the proposal, which is a pole building without sides and some storage containers. The math doesn't work for me as that why the applicant has to apply at all. Bringing in storage containers and building a pole building triggers this entire application for site plan?
Yeah, I can look up that section of code.
You don't have to do that. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm at a loss as to
So
why.
it's more than 30% of the existing floor area. That's what kicks it in.
Okay.
Yeah, and to kind of relate that and to answer Ms. Early's question, the piers and the maintenance dredging, so that's an existing commercial fishing site as far as we're concerned. It's a single family home. So they didn't have to come before you or the board to get that maintenance dredging or the piers. All they had to do was apply for a permit because it didn't rise to site plan level, but this does. So just as an example, that's why that was not a part of this application.
But just because I'm slow, to reiterate, it is used by right to do exactly what is being applied for.
Yes, and as you know, site plans all come before you and the Board of Commissioners for uses by right in Tarpon Springs.
Thank you.
Well, Pat, there's a little bit of confusion because on the preliminary staff recommendation, Resolution 2024-23, with the revisions enumerated on the previous slide, staff recommends approval of the proposed site plan and warrant with conditions. So
Yeah.
that is kind of how we do conditional use. So, and I'm not, this isn't about staff, but I'm saying I think there is a reason it's coming to us, and I don't think that it meets the permitted right, and I think that's why it's here. And I don't think that, I mean, if it was permitted by right, what's our point? And Kuskudis, Mr. Kuskudis says this
And
all the
again,
time. Why are we here?
I
And
can
there's a
pull
lot of-
that,
I know,
I can
but hold
pull
on,
that
just
code.
one second.
But there are
Pat.
3 choices you have
I know, but I'm
for a
just-
site plan.
But I'm just-
Denial, approval, or approval with conditions.
Right, I understand,
That
but
doesn't
it
make
just,
it a- yeah,
there's 6
conditional
conditions.
use.
There's 6 conditions. And I did want to ask, how many times this went to TRC?
3 times.
3 times. And were you the only, how many people commented? I saw a lot of comments. It wasn't just your concerns. There were multiple, I think there were a lot of environmental concerns from Public Works with erosion, environmental stuff in the lot. There was a lot of missing material multiple times. And again, we have if we have a typo right now, I want to be aware of that because I don't want another Moses Tucker issue where they get to retry whatever they want because there was a typo and we have to call them and say, oh, we did it wrong, so you get to try again here. And then they come back with their experts and, we have to go through that whole rigmarole again just because we had a typo because that's how it happened before.
Who's Moses Tucker?
Moses Tucker was the one that we had zoned improperly in the thing, and then they got to come back again, and then because of they had a motion for rehearing. We voted for that, and because it was our fault, and then they came back with again another bite at the apple. They got refused 2 times by BOC, and now they're working out their own thing with Mark, but.
Pat, I have a
It does look like conditional use to us. And it doesn't seem like that these things doesn't seem like it's permitted by right.
Let me just, a couple of comments. I think the big thing here too is the fact that now what they want to do, right, is to package and ship the fish. That's the change for them, is package and ship across the U.S. for food consumption. That is part of what the major change is from what they did before. Also,
And I would like to clarify, I do not know what the previous owner did with their catch. So there's nothing in the staff
okay,
report about
well,
that.
that's how it's kind
They
of
shipped
stated
it somewhere.
as. Modify, it says, but I don't know. But my other questions would be, when you have your preliminary staff recommendation, I go through 1, 2, and 3. 1, you said that site data table has been updated for the correct acreage. The second one, utility availability statement, we're awaiting the response, but that seems to be, they've got power and they're working on it. But the third one, it's not been seen yet. And this one brings me back memories of the RV. Because if this goes, it says, staff recommends this prior, going to the Board of Commissioners. So this goes to the Board of Commissioners, and at that time, hypothetically, say that they have all those plans. Manhole structure, sediment sump, baffle, oil grease skimmer, and all that, and it gets before them, and they go, none of this makes sense. I don't know how we can make a decision without knowing some of that.
So, yeah, and I can tell you what that will be.
Okay.
But I
That's the
cannot show you
engineering.
this evening. So the applicant will be placing
Yeah,
one structure,
I've read all of it.
one manual
Right.
structure that leads to a system, and the engineer here can explain it to you.
Okay,
Between the inlet and the water, that
Saying that
will
number 3
capture
has-
sediment and capture oils and grease. Now, I will tell you, so as you all know, when you get a site plan, it's 80 to 90% building permit plans. So the applicants put in a lot to produce this. This was something, I'll take the blame for this, that You know, that was the only remaining stormwater comment. It was received on Friday. The reviewer hadn't completed it today. But I made it a condition. But then the planning director said, hey, let's get them to do it before this is scheduled before a Board of Commissioners. The reason to come to you is because it does not change the layout that you see before you. If it changed the layout, it would not, we would not have brought it before you. So,
And I understand a lot of these, even though we did nothing wrong, I think on our RV, review, but at the same time, if we're going to wait for all these things to be done before it goes to the Board of Commissioners, we don't have, it's not a resolution, but we do have like a kind of a requirement type of, that if we get to see the same things that Board of Commissioners do, and I understand that it's always a push for the due process, that the applicant can push and push even if they don't have everything ready. We've had them come without site plans at all. But if they either do this or they don't do it, and then the report comes back, and then, Mayor, Vaticiotis goes up there and he asks all these questions as an engineer that we're not prepared to ask for, like, did you, issue this request for a permit from some bureaucracy I don't even know about, like idiots, and there are a lot of environmental concerns with this, and like I said, again, I'm not going to, I don't think it's fair to the Board of Commissioners, to the applicant, or to the city to not have the entire plan. This is a big operation, okay? They're going to be distributing nationwide. If you look up the applicant, which is I think our due diligence, this is somebody who's extremely connected to the fisherman world. I don't even know what these commissions are, but I would say maybe a lobbyist. Okay, there's a lot of, permit banking, which is, I don't know if, I just had to learn what that was today. I don't know if anyone knows what that is, but, we want to make sure we protect our local, we protect our local people. We have small businesses. This is a big business, and we want to make sure that before we do our due diligence, and maybe they need to come back with all this, and it's not anything about you, Pat. I know that they try to push these through.
I do have some questions with regard to the TRC process. Mm-hmm. So when the applicant comes in front of the TRC and they just don't get it right, the TRC has recommendations, they go back, play with their plans, do what they got to do, they come back to the TRC. Mm-hmm. They come back to TRC, and TRC says, well, you know what, there's other things that you haven't done or we need to have done. They go back, they come back to the TRC. Mm-hmm. So whether they've gone to the TRC once or 20 times, the question becomes, did they satisfy the TRC for the TRC to make a recommendation? So it's not the number of times they've gone in front of the TRC, it's whether or not they've complied with the requirements the TRC put in place when they go take their plans, amend them to become compliant with those requirements. So I don't want to, penalize somebody because they've been in front of the TRC multiple times. It's just the fact that they've gone in front to become compliant based on what the city demands are or the city recommendations are. Is that a pretty accurate statement?
yes.
Okay. Maybe this is not the proper time to have this discussion, but one of the things that we actually are looking under charter review is marine commerce, encouraging marine commerce, and that's, or having a commission to address marine commerce, because Tarpon, by its nature, is a sponge fishing, shrimping community, and even though we have tourism is an important role, but these are the things that we look at when we see an applicant that's bringing that industry to our community, regardless of where they ship their products, I think it's part of the mission statement or consistent with the character of this community is to become a marine or a marine, friendly, city, because that, again, that's part and parcel of our identity is marine industries. I just had to share that. Thank you.
And Pat, if I could just ask a question, if my recollection serves me, there was no requirement for notification to peripheral properties because this is just site plan?
Not beyond being on the agenda. That's the only public notice that goes out.
Right. My only concern is the one stack container on the south side seems to be so abutting to the property below it. And I know you mentioned that they're going to put a 6-foot privacy fence there. I don't know if that's going to eclipse that container because there's no height indication given on this. But I don't know what's going to be stored in there, if it's going to be refrigerated, if there's backup generators, but it may have some impact on the property to the south. So just as a consideration going forward, it might be something that is in need of
And that's,
some amendment.
that one is a single stack, not a double stack, so that is a single stack container. The applicant can talk about that. I'm assuming it will be hidden or mostly hidden by that 6-foot fence. This, the SDC does have very, very lenient setbacks because it wants to get this working waterfront up to the water, same as the WD had. The WD had that same thing, so that idea was carried over. Basically, there's kind of a lot of zero setback going on here.
Pat, if for
Thank you.
number 5, it has to be land development code requirements must be met. I mean, isn't that, if it has to meet the special area plan, isn't that understood that it has to meet the land development code?
Yes, the sections,
Why do we have to,
the
why
sections
does it
of,
have to be specified then? Like, shouldn't that be like a default, that if it's on the special area plan, it still has to meet the land development code? I mean, so
Yes.
but then,
so your
or the smart,
second,
it should be the smart code though, right?
well, the second criteria is meeting the land development code. There are portions of the smart code that are not covered. Good example, the dumpster enclosure. That's not in the smart code,
Right.
but the smart code specifies which land development codes apply. That one still applies, so we have to use both in this case to review the project, which is what we did, the TRC did.
Yeah, okay.
I'd like to ask our legal representative, in a case like this where it is just a site plan approval, a little clarification on what sorts of things we are able to consider and what sorts of things we aren't able to consider to review this application.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'll read this right from your code. And it says that the Planning and Zoning Board shall review the application for compliance with provisions of this code, which would be your land development code. She mentioned both the smart code and the regular code, the comprehensive plan and the city's buildings codes, and shall make a written recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. So it's fairly narrow. I understand staff is making recommendations or conditions simply I think it's to make sure that the application is corrected or improved before it gets to the Board of Commissioners. But the code itself just makes sure, you have to make sure that it's compliant with the code, the comprehensive plan, and the building codes.
But kind of beyond that, though, I mean, we're not in a position of addressing zoning or land use or any of that stuff. It's strictly
a site plan.
limited to the site plan.
Strictly a site plan. Some site plans can be done administratively through the TRC when they meet a certain threshold, as your planner stated. It pops into a public hearing scenario, which you're at, and has to go to the Board of Commissioners. But again, the review criteria as stated is very narrow. It's not to evaluate the zoning or whether the zoning's appropriate or any of those things. It did reach the criteria. There are 3 thresholds which trigger a site plan in the first place. And then the question is whether it's an administrative approval or through a public hearing process. I hope that answers your question. You can ask questions, it's no doubt about that, but as I read the quasi judicial rules, I mean, you're supposed to be looking for competent substantial evidence as it applies to the criteria for which site plans are to be reviewed under your jurisdiction.
Last time we did that, we were told that they were very disappointed in us, so.
And I would
We're trying
add
to be thorough.
I would add to that that all of the conditions are all codes that have to be met. We have had, some of these are standard. We have had instances where it seems like a good idea to emphasize certain codes to the applicant when they get that resolution and to put them on notice because just to avoid future problems. Good example are utilities. Application contractor shall field verify all utilities. Adjustments are the contractor's responsibility. 48 hours notice. It seems like a lot to put on there, but we've had some recent problems, and this is all codified already. But we have had a couple instances, well, I didn't know, or you didn't tell me. This is to try to improve putting the applicant on notice. That's kind of what these are. So none of these are really conditions outside of the existing code, that this list in particular, right now, just.
Well, I understand that, Pat, and I'm just saying, Habitat for Humanity was all prepared, and this is a fairly large company that just doesn't seem to know, have to keep coming back. So it just raises some concerns that it's not necessarily that they don't know that those things aren't required. It's more of just how they're working the system, maybe. So, that's just based on just what I'm seeing in this application. So,
okay.
Any further questions for staff? Seeing none, would the applicant like to make a presentation? Approach and state your name and address, please.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Presby. I'm with Trans Systems Engineering. We are the engineer of record for the property owner, Mr. De La Cruz. Address is 565 South Hercules Avenue, Clearwater, 33764. As you know, this is an existing single-family residential home on a property that is vacant. The interior of the existing house has been gutted and is currently not being used. Subject property has an existing driveway curb cut parking area that is a mixture of dirt, compacted sand, gravel, and asphalt sections. The property is currently being used by fishing vessels to unload fish that is eventually distributed to local restaurants and fish markets. The property owner is proposing to construct a new pole barn, 4 shipping containers, 3 single-story, 1 double-stack. The height, the single stories will be in that 10-foot height. Double story will be 20 foot, which meets the 2-story code requirement. Like I said, the building will primarily be used for processing the incoming fishing orders. The actual house that's on there will be used for processing incoming fishing orders, storage of boxes, shipping materials. There'll be an ADA accessible restroom located inside. We're providing parking to the site, stormwater drainage, concrete sidewalk, walkways, a dumpster enclosure, bike rack, a small stormwater management system, landscaping. Again, the pole barn will be metal with exposed sides, so any type of flooding or anything that happens on the property won't have a way to get off the without damaging any structures up there. Signage is not proposed. Site lighting is not proposed. The site will primarily be operational during daylight hours, which are primarily from 7 to 3 p.m., 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. About the stormwater drainage system, the structure that you guys are talking, that's of concern here is basically the site will be graded towards the center of that proposed drive aisle. There'll be an inlet basin there that's draining to the seawall. That inlet structure will have a grate and a manhole for access. Inside that, there will be a skimmer and filter fabric that will prevent the oils, greases, what have you, and the skimmer will be used for trash, debris. There was a concern about the rocks from the compacted driveway, but the size stone that we're using, after trucks, go on that for a while, it becomes compacted, so we're not really concerned about the gravel getting in there, but we are putting something in there to satisfy what the concerns are. Erosion control consists of silt fence around the perimeter of the property, sediment traps around existing and proposed stormwater structures. There was a comment that Pat had about sediment and erosion control not being on plans, and they actually were on the plans. I think they were just overlooked. As far as use, primarily the owner will be, fishing vessels will be coming in during the morning and the afternoons, unloading their fish, packing them, stocking them on ice, and then that same day being shipped out. I don't even think more than a day that the fish will be on site, most likely. Trucks will pull up coming from the south on Island Drive and eventually make their way out towards the Dodecaness Circle and exit that way. The business owner has 2 employees that will park in the parking spaces on the subject property. There's not a lot of foot traffic. It's not open to the public, so therefore we're not asking for or trying to propose any more additional parking spaces. The city mentioned earlier in one of the earlier TRC meetings about the existing seawall at the northwest corner being in bad shape and a lot of sediment issues out there. Property owner has already secured permits for that work to do that improvement for the city and for his site. We agree with the staff report. One thing I do want to mention is with the TRC process, we had actually requested a pre-application meeting with the city. We had a blanket site plan that we were proposing, and literally it was just 4 structures, the 4 shipping containers, and the pole barn, and we knew what we were doing with the restroom in the building. We were instructed to not, they couldn't give us an informal pre-application meeting just to discuss kind of the specifics. We were told to go to TRC, so we went through kind of with a blank slate the first time. They had issued review comments, and I think Pat will back me on this, there was some discrepancy in reading of the code and deciphering certain parts of it. So the second TRC review was basically to kind of filter through that, which prompted a third independent meeting with Pat to kind of iron everything out, and then we got to this point where we are here today. And the plan that you guys have in your packet and the conditions that were listed, all those items have already been addressed and have been accepted by her. So we, and our plan, we feel meets the land development code, and that's the reason why it's before you guys right now. I don't think if it wasn't approved, at least by planning, then we wouldn't even be at this point here right now. So I just wanted to state that so that kind of we're on the same page. The property owner and their attorney are also here as well, if you guys have any questions.
I'd like to insert a procedural issue. The affidavit authorizes Tina Underwood, I believe it is,
I think
to
I'm on that.
speak. We have the owner. Could the owner come up and authorize these other folks to speak since they aren't on the affidavit?
Pat, I think I'm actually on the affidavit too. Al, myself, and
Okay, I don't know if we have a new affidavit, but
So Greg and then also Ann Pollock are approved to speak on my behalf, as
And
well as
you
I will
are-
answer any questions you guys
yeah,
have.
could you give your name and address for him?
Jason Dela Cruz. I live in 12124 Lillian Avenue in Seminole, and then own the property on 599 and 607 Island Drive.
Okay, thanks.
I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry, did I? I was looking about your waste, and it kind of stunned me, and maybe it was solid waste, 100 tons per year?
I believe that was just based on 2 dumpsters a week. I mean, we don't really have any waste. The only thing it is plastic that comes back with the boats when they go offshore. But otherwise, we don't have any waste.
Well, I mean, that's kind of one of the things that startled me. I thought,
I
okay, the
think
fish is
that math
coming in
was-
and the fish is going out, but then
Typo.
I see 100 tons per year. That's a lot.
Maybe that was a typo. It's essentially the 2 dumpster pulls a week.
Okay, all right.
So is fish cleaned before it's sent out then, or is it sent out whole?
Everything we do is whole, so we don't do any processing. And actually, my second or third biggest customer is 120 feet from me once I get this facility up and running. So I sell Lockhart 190,000 pounds a year.
Renee, if there's a typo, Pat, we have to address that now. We can't submit this without addressing whether that's a typo or not.
I can address the issue on waste because I've gone through it with the client.
Well, no, we need, we need the applicant and the staff to address it.
Oh, I understand
It has to
that.
be corrected, not by any of one of us up here.
But what they do is they take,
No.
they
If
take the
He just said it was a
dumpster.
typo, not you.
Well-
It's not for us to address. If he thinks it's a typo, it needs the staff and the applicant have to address it before it gets submitted to BOC. You can't just say, I understand that this more than anybody else. If he thinks it's a typo, then
Well,
he has to address it with
I
staff.
think we just did the math on if a dumpster held X and we did 2 dumpster pulls
But it has
a
to be
week.
addressed now and by, yeah.
We weren't sure of the size of the dumpster the city was going to give us. So
There seems to be a lot of typos and missing information in this application.
If you, I don't know if you want to get into this, but how big is the dumpster? 2 yards?
in my previous facility, I shared a 3-yard dumpster with 4 other businesses in that spot because that's the only way we could do it. And that was in John's Pass. So
Okay.
Well, again, it
So
might have been
that's
helpful to say
300.
100 tons per year,
So-
including all the dumpsters.
Yeah, so that's 312 yards a year. I don't know what the weight would be, but that's what you're looking at. I don't know.
if we change that to yards, is that better than weight?
Well, the usual is tons per year.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and calculate out for you.
Yeah. So he might be able to give you an idea now what it actually is if this is incorrect.
Well, but I'm just saying, Pat, I mean, we're supposed to have all this information, and we can't properly make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners as we're supposed to if we don't have all the information. If they don't understand or they don't know, these aren't things, this is a big project. I mean, I was been through TRC 3 times. There should not be confusion at this point.
I have an
Just going to wait and
I
see
have
if
an
we get an
unrelated
answer.
question why they cipher up there, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
And your point is valid, is that those are the facts. I have a logistical question.
Yes.
Just like daily activity. So would all of the trucks that would be entering and loading, would they all enter into your property, be loaded, and then exit? Or would they occasionally be using the right-of-way of the road to be loaded? Let's say maybe a truck comes in that's too big to back in. How do you foresee that going down?
So those trucks are going to Pelican right now or to Rusty Bellies and then also to Lockhart. So it's just same truck's just going to come right to us. So they actually load on the street in front of Rusty Bellies, and I assume that the longer trucks would have to load in front of ours on the right of way, but we also have another half a dozen short trucks that come as well that they could back into the property.
Okay, so if I may, I'm going to keep asking this question and
Sure.
really dial this in. Do you intend to use the public right-of-way as a loading dock?
Well, I guess we have to pick it up with a forklift and set it in the back of it. So yeah, in those applications, the same way the rest of the businesses in that area are using it.
I'm not asking about anybody else's business, and I know what's going on down there.
So yes.
But,
So yes.
So the
When
answer is
when
yes.
Yeah,
So
so,
you-
when if it's a tractor that comes alongside there that has to do, that's where we would load it. We would load it in the street.
okay, and I'm going to defer now, if I may be so bold, because I did ask a question and you gave me a great answer, and this is super important. So now I'm going to ask staff. Can I have permission to ask staff? Yeah. Good. Staff, Miss McNeese, and thank you for your patience with me tonight.
Thank you.
I'm not asking anybody else right now. I'm only asking staff. Would it be normal and customary for a business, no matter what the type, to assume that they get to use the public right-of-way as a usual and ordinary loading dock? Meaning that they're planning to block the road consistently and regularly to do their business. Would that be how other businesses operate?
It would not be a designated loading dock. As you can see on the site plan, there are designated loading zones on this plan. So the docks, like downtown, is a close, built-up, building-dense area. Does almost every business down there utilize the right-of-way to offload and load? They usually pull over so they're not blocking traffic. As we heard the applicant say, we're going to be operating from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.-ish. The pictures I took were right around 8 o'clock in the morning. Not a lot of people down there, but I was able to drive down Island Drive. It was not blocked.
This is going to be so uncomfortable, and forgive me for interrupting.
Yeah, it's used.
I know that everybody does it. Everybody speeds too, but that doesn't make it legal. Is it the intent of that road, based on your understanding of our streets and right-of-ways, is it the intent of, what's the road? Island
Drive.
Is it the intent of Island Drive to be customarily used as a private commercial loading zone?
It's a yes or no.
So if you're asking me if we expect the applicant
Nope, I didn't say
to pull, or
that. Nope,
anybody.
I asked, is Island Drive
and I'd like to
designated a open loading zone for businesses that operate there?
So is the expectation that a truck will pull completely off Island Drive every time it goes there?
That would,
I would say
if I
that's not-
operate a business, that's what
Yeah.
I would expect.
I would
But
say.
I digress, because I want to stay right on this
Yeah, I'd
topic.
like to answer.
Is Island Drive built and used so that half of it at all time can be used for private commercial loading?
Island Drive is an access to private commercial property.
Okay.
Is it a designated loading zone for that purpose? The answer is no. I mean, I would say staff
Staff never
would
looked
say
or even brought that
it's,
up.
it's reasonable to assume that, I would say, a lot of the businesses at the docks, the restaurants, everything,
You're so
uses-
pleasant, but we're so off topic because we've already denied, someone just got denied because they were not allowed to drive RVs that were too big. But here we've got someone whose entire intent, although not declared, but I can see the future and so can everyone else, the entire intent is to pull up big trucks, park them in the street, and load them. Because I can tell right now that ain't no tractor trailer rig backing into that piece of property to be loaded.
Okay.
And that's kind of the P&Z job, is kind of look at how it's going to be used and see the future. I don't know. So just to hear what I'm just going to repeat what I heard you say.
Okay.
No, Island Drive is not designed or to be used as a commercial loading zone.
Yeah, I said it was not designated as a loading zone.
I mean, this is the semantics.
Yes, sir.
That's what it
Mr.
said.
Dickman, go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just want to say, I mean, going back to the question about what should you be looking for, unless the code, meaning your land development code or your comprehensive plan, allows for using the right-of-way as normal business practice for loading and unloading, then you have the ability to make that stipulation in your approval. that
As a
it shall-
condition.
That it shall not be used.
I mean,
Because
specifically.
the
this-
applicant has said that they are going to use it on a regular basis.
But the staff specifically told us to read the narrative and in bold and italics. And then within the narrative, in bold, again, the size of trucks and traffic pattern will be no different than what the area currently or previously experienced for the past 10-plus years. And this has been come up time and time again at the sponge docks. Oh, well, people are already in the roads, so who cares? That's not okay. Those are pedestrians, those are our tourists, that is our economy. That is what runs this city. It is not okay because the law is broken, because people speed. Okay, so everyone else is doing it, and we're gonna deny somebody who owns property, ran a business here for 22 years, for the same reason, but they're like, oh, well, everybody else does it, so why can't we? Why can't we profit off of you? Why can't we do that?
So can we ask?
Because everybody else is doing it. That is not consistent with, I don't care if, then we have, go back to the strategic plan then.
Yeah.
The strategic plan, I'm pretty sure, doesn't say, that does not coincide with this. So I'm sorry, just to say that it's what everybody else does. I mean, we're just gonna wait until somebody does get hurt? And believe me, those trucks, they're not making it around that roundabout either, okay? The next day after the RV thing was passed, there were there were cars lined up all around the sponge docks because one of those trucks got stuck around the roundabout.
Yeah.
So that's a lie that they make it around there every day.
So we're talking about using the same routes, and we're talking about, as in the description here, using the same size trucks, but we're not talking about the number. And I know you're open 7 to 3, but those are gonna be trucking later on in the day. How many trucks do you estimate a day are gonna be now going from your business?
They're already there.
What? They're already there. No, now with the new business,
So-
with them now selling US-wide. They're there for their existing customers, but they're increasing the number of customers.
Pat, to your knowledge, are there any parking?
So,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, there was a question for the applicant.
How many trucks do you estimate are gonna be going daily from your business?
On a day that we're offloading, 2 to 3 that are big trucks. The other ones will be small trucks that will pull into the thing.
I'm talking about the ones that are saying now too, that are gonna go US-wide.
Yeah, so,
What are the small trucks, triaxles instead of semis? What are
no,
small
just
trucks?
a straight truck. So a truck with a box on the back.
Okay,
Yeah, so a straight box truck. I mean, one of the deliveries that we load now is Lockhart, where he drives his trucks down and picks it up from us. And that's a small single axle van.
A couple questions. First of all, Pat, we're here on a site plan only, so it's a permitted use. Okay. 2, I understand we let one, do we have a card, because everybody else parks trucks along Dota Canese. Just Saturday, there was, 3 semis unloading U.S. Foods, and I can't remember the other 2. And so we have to ask ourselves, there's no loading zones along Dota Canese, but everybody uses Dota Canese as a loading and unloading zone. Okay, that's a main thoroughfare. Do we start cutting? Again, look at what we are doing as a community when we are looking for marine commerce to improve our marine commerce industry. Okay, and we have multiple, whether it's Julie Reese and the seafood, where they have semis, as they said, they actually load at her location. There's no designated loading zones for Halas along that road. There's no designated loading zone all along the sponge docks, none. But if you go on any given day, it's full of trucks. We didn't deny the RV park. The commission did. We approved it unanimously. Okay, unanimously we approved it. Okay, and he got a raw deal, but that's a different story. But I don't want us to lose sight what's in front of us. What's in front of us is having a property owner who's already have the permitted use to do what they're doing, the opportunity to do it better. And bigger or better, doesn't matter. It's just that those are the industries that we have focused in that's the heart of our community. That's our mission statement. When we look at marine commerce, that's the reason we have a waterfront district and why we've done what we've done down at the sponge docks and along that coast. I mean, that part of Roosevelt and Island Drive. Okay, and those are the businesses we should be embracing. And so we obviously there are certain conditions that the city has put in place that the city has recommended that we move forward in this. You know, it's just, I find it sometimes frustrating. I don't want us to shoot ourselves in the foot on yeah, if you let one do it, why don't you let others do it? You know, the point is, if you're not going to let one, you shouldn't let anybody. Okay? So if you're not going to let one person do it, you shouldn't let anybody do it.
That is an excellent point.
So,
But there's a distinction between the trucks, the people that distribute to our stores, our tourism. That is not the same as somebody who's coming to deliver, distribute, and take our
what's the
fish out to.
difference?
It is because the trucks that are coming are delivering to our restaurants, and they're delivering. That's what drives our tourism. What do you mean? What's the difference?
well, that's what, we are.
There is a difference, and if you don't work down there, maybe you don't understand. But that is the difference between there are trucks that are coming to give us our food to sell, or giving us our merchandise to sell. This is trucks going out to take our fish out of the United States. That is not contributing to our tourism.
No, none of my fish.
Yes, it's exactly what it says.
None of my fish leaves the United States.
It says you distribute to the United States. It says it in your application.
You said out of the United States. None of my fish leave the United States. I don't sell anything to another country.
No, to the United States, but outside of Tarpon is the point.
Okay,
The
if you
trucks
want me
coming
to sell
into
it on
this
here,
city.
I can sell
No,
you.
there's a difference.
This is a marine industry.
Commissioner
It's a-
Koulias brought this up in the thing, and so I know you watched the meeting, so pay attention, because I brought it up, and he brought it up. They're not the same trucks. Those trucks coming in are sustaining our tourism economy. This is not. There's a distinction, and it's different between saying, oh, someone else does it, so I can do it too. It's not for the same purpose.
They're sustaining our economy in the city.
No, they're not. That's not sustaining our economy. It's not making money for us.
I opened this can of fish.
So those,
I
those
did
trucks
ask, and
do
thank
come
you for
there
answering.
now.
So do you think like 2 or 3 full-size semi-trucks would come a day? The young lady there asked
It
about.
wouldn't be every day because we don't unload every day. It would be on a Monday and then maybe again on a Wednesday and a Friday, or maybe a Monday and then a Friday, because it just depends on when the boats come in.
And you could see the concern,
Well,
right?
I mean,
We're kind of full.
I can certainly adjust the front of the property so that the truck could pull in more on my property, but then there's other things that you guys are asking that I can't accomplish if I do that.
Well,
Landscaping.
that is a wonderful compromise, is that maybe an attempt to reduce the congestion and let me try and present it in a different way, is that, of course, it's a use by right. And Mr. Kuskudis, who hid back there, has an excellent point. It's the whole purpose of the area. But a lot of other people use that road, pedestrians, bikers, tourists, and such. And so just because it's there doesn't mean that it's yours or available for everybody's use, right?
Well, I don't know how to be a marine use
No,
facility without
I mean the roadway. Just because the roadway's there doesn't mean you automatically get to use it for personal gain. Everybody else does it, fine. So maybe if there's a way that you could reduce or be part of reducing that, and if you had an idea, and I can see that your engineer maybe does, to maybe bring your trucks in, if at all possible, that would help. Otherwise, I'm probably going to propose a pretty strict warrant or restriction on any expansion or parking along that road. So, just an idea.
I have a question about the operation now.
Yes, sir.
You're operating now, correct?
Yes, sir.
And is the volume of product going to increase, or is it just going to become more convenient and better from an operational standpoint?
Well, we're operating now in Madeira Beach, so the volume there will be moved out, and I'm doing that in Johns Pass, which is far more congested than this. So we've worked around that with that city, and they're happy with me. I've been there for 10 years, and the only reason that we made this adjustment because there was more actual space that's 3 times what I have now to actually do the job of unloading. And we were running 3 other businesses there. Here, we're just focused on just unloading fish and distributing it.
Okay, so the volume of fish being loaded in Tarpon Springs is going to increase
Yes, sir.
substantially.
I'd be lying to you if I tell you it wouldn't. So I'm not going to do that. But I mean, we unload fish to, the understanding of the size of my company seems to be a factor too. And I think you need to understand, we unload fish in Naples, we unload fish in Louisiana, we unload fish across the Gulf. We cross-dock with places, so we have a lot of smaller companies that we pay them to pack fish. So that's what makes us look bigger than we are. At this facility, we will be 6-8 boats, so it won't be a tremendous amount, but it'll be more than what's there now.
I have a question for staff, if I could, Patricia. Are you aware of any current parking restrictions on Island Drive currently? Is there anything that regulates what can park, stand, stop on either side of the street?
If you're asking me, are there any no parking signs which the police would put up? Not that I've seen, but I didn't drive the whole length of it. There are none in front of this property or...
There was a Honda Accord parked there for about a year and a half. Has that been removed from in front of the bistro?
Honda Accord?
Yeah,
Not that I-
the unlicensed one that was just sitting there? Yeah.
Not that I haven't seen that there since I've owned it.
Oh, well, it was there. I have pictures of it, yeah. It sat there for about a year and a half.
I have no idea whose that was.
No license
So
plate, just right in front of it, yep.
You would have to talk to the
The
owners of the
property, so-
bistro and the owners of Blackbeard's. They're the ones that rent the property, so.
Well, you're the owner though, so you have the onus is on you as the property owner.
I'm sorry, you'll have to
Stop.
come up to the microphone or...
Well, regardless of what is there, either on a temporary or static basis, thank you, Pat, for your response about the parking. Then I would have a question for council. You brought up the fact of maybe adding some additional conditions by us to this application. Would it not be considered a bit arbitrary and capricious to apply it to one property, but not the others that are the same type of use in the area?
So I'm looking at this application for the first time only. And actually, I don't think that, unless somebody tells me that it is legal in your code and in your comprehensive plan to essentially stage trucks on the public right-of-way for loading and transportation, then I'm only going to tell you that I don't care what other people are going to do.
Right.
I'm sorry, I don't know I get what the reality is, but I have to tell you what I think the law is. And again, if somebody tells me the code or the comprehensive plan has sanctioned this type of activity, typically what I normally see is that when somebody does a site plan or a development, just like stormwater, you try to not have queuing in the right-of-way. You try to bring your traffic onto your site, just like you try to keep all your stormwater on your site and not discharge. So all I'm telling, I mean, I have to rely on staff a little bit here, because unless they tell me that it's okay for everybody else to be doing it, or there's some kind of special permit that they can get, then I would say that that falls into the jurisdiction of the code enforcement folks to go out there and start ticketing everybody who's blocking the right-of-way.
Right.
But I wouldn't suggest that you all sanction that type of activity, unless I'm told that there's some provision in the comprehensive plan or the code that says we acknowledge that this particular right-of-way for industrial purposes is to be used for queuing of private trucks for the use of private business.
No, and that's just something that people on the board, just because they, try to say, well, everybody does it, so this isn't any different, and it's not like that. And the other thing is that we are only advisory. So, I mean, honestly, the Board of Commissioners does what they want, but at the same time, I'd like to address some of the issues that they've had before. And one of them with the RV thing, same issue with these big trucks, was how are they going to get into these spots? So it's the same issue they had with, are they going to, as they move back or whatnot, are they going to be blocking Island Drive? So this is the same issue that we're having there, and it's our job to advise them of the same problems that they faced before. So that's something that we're addressing. It's our job to ask questions so that they don't have to ask the same questions if they choose to. And we're advisory. They're just going to do whatever they want. But I'm trying to address everything that we can now so that that's our job, so they don't have to ask those questions.
Right, and let me put it this another way, is that, like, so for example, it's, you know, the applicant's being very straightforward in telling you how he operates. So he's telling you, I'm going to use the right-of-way.
He is.
So let's say that 2 years from now, a pedestrian gets injured or there's an accident there because of that, and someone, a good attorney, probably would go back and look at the approval, this discussion right now, and say, oh, well, they said it was okay.
I have a question, just,
How's a parked truck
I have a
create
question.
liability?
It's more
Hello.
blocking than it's just the blocking of the way is more than the.
I'm just telling you how I look at things.
That's ridiculous.
I've obviously been on the island, oh, am I interrupting somebody? I've obviously been on this road. However, I can't, in my mind, I'm trying to picture the ability of a semi to, even if, you know, the owner figures out some way to get the semi to be able to pull in there, the turning radius of a semi is, I mean, they need quite a radius. And are they going to be able to pull in properly and back out properly on that same road without potentially causing harm or hurting someone? I mean, that kind of, when I think about it, it doesn't make sense. And maybe I'm not remembering Island Way correctly, but it just looks like a tight area in there.
You know what, if I remember correctly, correct me, is some of these issues were city created when they put the roads in. And I think I think they acknowledged that there may have been some with anticipation of, as far as the circle is concerned and stuff like that, that they made it more difficult for large vehicles to maneuver. And I think that became evident when on the other applicant on the RV park. But that's beside the point. It is what it is. But with regard to the comment about liability, if a truck is moving, it could create an accident. If a truck is parked, I don't know how that goes liability, but whether it's a truck moving, a car moving, if you cause an accident, you're liable regardless of what you're driving. So any extra liability for a truck that's parked, I just don't see it as far as that argument is concerned.
I think
But-
the
I just think
attorney is saying that the city could also be included as a defendant in the suit.
The city gets, the charter committee brought that up today too. Liability, the city's sovereign. No one sues the city anymore because it's not profitable. The issue more is blocking traffic, okay? And to our local, so Rusty Bellies, there's two ways to get to Rusty Bellies. One of them is Dodecanese and the other one is Roosevelt to Island. And the issue again is you are not supplying, their fish. You are taking.
I sell to Rusty
I'm not done
Bellies.
talking. You're taking it and you're taking it out of here, and that's our economy. That's our business. Those people. That's what we care about. And you're not bringing anything to the people of Tarpon. You're just profiting on your own. And a lot. I'm not done talking, sir. Please stop. Please stop. Okay. We don't have much room left. Okay, and I'm sorry, but I'm gonna be picky about who comes here. Okay, and if you're not looking to help the people of Tarpon, you're looking to help yourself. And saying, yes, trucks come here, yes, but those trucks they deliver to our stores, okay? They deliver to our restaurants that help our tourism. You are just using our roads to take and leave and clogging them up. And you're gonna block that road to people that try to get to the stores that profit our residents and our businesses. So that's the difference, and I mean, you can say what you want, but that's the truth.
So, can I say something? Yeah. The 3 trucks that will come, the big tractors that you're talking about, go to Rusty Bellies now.
I don't care.
I have a question for the applicant, and I didn't have the good manners to ask your name.
Jason.
Hey, Jason. Do you see a business model where you can do everything that you plan to do without the tractor trailers or the full-size semis? Stretch your imagination.
I guess if you really wanted me to pick up the fish and put them in a smaller truck and then go meet those trucks someplace else when they're parked at Rusty Bellies, then I could do that. So
I know it stretches the logic, but, you know, it's kind of like, I'll use a different example. If you live in a big condominium complex and there's a gate, you don't get to bring the Mayflower semi in, parks outside, and a last mile or a short delivery truck picks that up, comes through the gate, and goes inside. That's normal and customary. Do you think that you could do your business and keep all of your loading on your property and don't use the public right-of-way for your business operation? Because now the beans have been spilled. You intend to use the public right-of-way to operate your business. That's not going to fly.
Well, like I said, I could pull the trucks on the front line there, but I have to put shrubs and other things there, and it has to be some of the green space. So if we
Right.
could adjust how the green space gets used, those trucks could be just
On
about
your
completely
property.
on our property.
Good. I think that maybe we should do that.
How does that affect the land
Yeah,
development code and
and
the site plan now?
that is actually what I was trying to research just now. So one difficulty a little bit that I have with the smart code is on a site like this, it wants to be lenient to allow the industrial marine type use, and yet there is a landscaping requirement in the front. I haven't located, I don't know if there's a way to adjust that by warrant. You can use right-of-way, so it does let you use the landscaping, in other words, doesn't have to be on the property. It can be in the right-of-way. But if we're talking about pulling a truck in parallel, there would have to be some kind of configuration to figure out where to put the minimum landscaping that's required.
The arborist was on the I saw Shannon,
Yeah,
right, so she had her whole, like, narrative on there too. So would that be a warrant if they had to push that in? Because that would affect the arborist's requirements in the smart code, right? Would that be a warrant then? To move that in, because it would affect the arborist's, the shrubs, like you said?
yeah, but the arborist is reviewing this based on the smart code.
Right, but to fix it now, like if they could, would it be possible under a warrant? Or would that have to be then conditional use?
So we could make that a condition.
But it's not conditional use, that's what I'm like, I don't know if we can do that under a site plan.
site plan approval.
Yeah.
We can add conditions to a site
So
plan.
like, but then she would have to, like, the arborist would have to go work around that.
She would have to, we would re-review it and have them adjust the landscaping
But see.
to try to configure I
think
guess
it's
we're
easier to
talking about
configure
pulling
landscape.
But
a
you're
space
also-
parallel to the
Conditional
road.
use, we're just advisory, but if we send them back and they add it in
You're
as like
also
their
introducing-
application, then it's more.
Like, if we did it as a condition with regard to, obviously when it comes in front of the BOC, if they adopt that condition, then it would require, and as the engineer, the question would become is being able to work to that's beyond my expertise, is being able to work with the city as far as repositioning the landscape or doing something with the landscape to meet the city's requirements.
That's what I was just going to say here too, is we're required to put a sidewalk right there. So we pull trucks off, now you're eliminating or blocking that sidewalk.
I didn't know there was there's a sidewalk?
Yeah, sidewalk, we're required to put sidewalk all the way
no one's
across
required to
there.
put a sidewalk anywhere in Tarpon. You just pay something. Sidewalk.
This one's required. This one's required.
Just give money to our fund.
Just spent 2 hours.
So, Mr. Chair, one of the three options you have is, so you have approval with stipulations or denial. So I think, if it's felt that, a stipulation that the applicant, find a way to not, to not interfere with traffic.
Is
You
that
can do
enough
that,
room,
or however
Pat?
you want to say it, but I mean, that you can put those stipulations, you're making a recommendation to the BOC, and then they would have to come up operationally with that information to the BOC.
Is there enough room, Pat, for they could get in there with the, if they move the shrubs or the, whatever that Shannon put in there?
Actually, I think we talked about this, and I'll look to Greg as well, about this option before. I think they actually proposed to do it, so I think there's sufficient room. We'll just have to take another look at it.
Gonna say, we'll talk with Shannon. If you guys want us to look at it that way, we can look at, like you said, moving the, we're also gonna have to move that dumpster as well there, Pat, because it's just the maneuvering is gonna make, because you're gonna have to be able to pull off and pull back on, so we have no problem in working with staff to try and get that resolved. I mean,
Can I make a suggestion? Pat, I know time is important to you to move forward, but I'm just wondering, rather than take a vote today, if you resubmit your application with some of the things that we discussed.
Technically, it'd be a modification.
A modification.
So they don't have to
Continue
pay
what
the
we did with
fees.
the-
A modification
Mugros.
with the things that we discussed and to bring it back rather than force a vote
Just basically
tonight.
table this
So,
and.
so if, would it be okay, do we have to, does the applicant have to table it? Or do we have to make a motion to table it?
Pat, remember what we did with Mugros? I think it was a continuance.
Or continue
We have
for
done it
about-
before, yeah. This would be, I believe, probably a continuance, I'm going to say, to a date certain, which would probably be the next meeting.
I'm good with that.
And to specify what you would like to see
But
happen.
I think
in
the applicant has to request that, don't they? It's not up to us to suggest it.
The applicant is, I believe, entitled to a vote if he wishes to have you vote on it tonight, but you could certainly ask him if he would agree.
Well, that would be up to them, but I was just throwing that
Yeah.
out there to, because the thing is this, you could hear the passion that this board has, and we try to vet these things pretty thoroughly. And so, there's a way to be successful, and there's a way to push the envelope, and I'd rather see you try to be more successful than trying to
Absolutely.
Uh,
push the envelope.
And if you want to go back and watch the other meeting, you'll see why we didn't do that the last one. And then at the BOC meeting, it was really rough on the applicant. So it's good to watch other meetings and see that, because we're just advisory. You could deny it and you could go to them and they could say yes, or, anything could happen. But
So if it's continued to a date certain, it would avoid the necessity for advertising. So if you continued it to the next meeting within, if the applicant wanted the continuance, they could request it. It's still up to you to approve that continuance. They don't just get it, but I mean, if you want to continue to work on these issues, you can continue it to the next meeting without having to re-advertise it.
And that's something we'd like to.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve their.
before that,
Please.
the people with the house next door, is that your house?
Troy Vaughn.
And they're fine with the 6-foot fence? Okay.
He's excited about this.
I was just,
Okay.
We have a motion, we need a second.
I would second.
I'm not familiar.
This is for the continuance, correct?
Yes.
The motion.
Motion to continue this application.
To what's the date?
Next meeting.
To
Or till such time as they present an amended, a modification to their plan.
Well, okay, so there's a difference. So if you just defer it,
Defer it till there's till
Then
their
they'll have to
modification.
re-advertise
They're
it.
requesting a modification of their plan. So until their modification of their plan is complete and submitted to the
Not that much
city,
to re-advertise.
then we'd be on the following meeting, whatever that might be.
And this is just an item on the agenda. There's no other advertising involved.
Okay.
I don't know if that works.
because it's a site plan, so it's not,
For anybody watching tonight or watching the meeting, they would have to look at the agendas to see when this comes back, if you don't do a date certain.
and I just advise everybody that's applying to Tarpon or just to watch meetings where other people have made applications, especially in the same area, because it's not just ours, but the Board of Commissioners, so you're prepared for those types of things. It's not that, you don't want to be surprised.
Do we have a second? Yes. Okay. Is there any further discussion?
And could I clarify, so I'm going to be, we're going to be looking at the loading and parking to be off Island Drive. We're going to be looking to confirm or correct the solid waste generation. And I think all the other comments were related to
So including all of your
those two
other
things.
conditions that you had in there that you were waiting on?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Right, but there was nothing else new, I don't think.
To amend the landscaping as necessary and as approved
Yep.
by the city owners.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
All right. Can we have a roll call?
Ms. Swenson?
Yes.
Ms. Early?
Yes.
Mr. Rockline?
Yes.
Ms. Francis?
Yes.
Mr. Bessie?
Yes.
Mr. Kouskoudis?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes. All right. That brings us to staff comments. Anything else?
No comments this evening.
That brings us to board comments. Anything else?
Tomorrow they are doing the comp plan repeal in the BOC. So some of the items on there, are being addressed again as they have a spreadsheet for steering committee members and public comments, and some of them were addressed, and we didn't have, I don't think Attorney Dickman was here at the time, and we didn't have an attorney at that meeting. So just something to,
Did you say comp plan
the
approval?
repeal, like remember at the workshop?
Oh, yeah.
So tomorrow is the repeal, but there's a lot of comments on there that were addressed to us from the public that day, and then the steering committee that are on
When we
there.
were here, we heard those
Right,
comments.
but there's just they're separated. There's comments on a spreadsheet, and then there's public comments. It's just something that maybe just be watching, and it's too late to appoint someone to go, but I just think that all of us should be watching, and just in case, as individual members can always call in just to clarify something.
Out of curiosity, were there significant feedback that was contrary to?
Well, on one of the spreadsheets, it says that we did not approve certain things that we never really voted on. Remember when we approved some of those recommendations? We never said no to some recommendations. We just motioned for some to come in.
I don't think you have to do a negative on a recommendation from you don't have to vote on somebody that makes a recommendation you don't adopt. If you make a change, you got to make a vote, but if
Right,
you
but
don't,
there were other changes.
if you
that
don't
were-
adopt something, you don't have to
There were other
vote.
changes that were in there that didn't say the board did not recommend.
Oh.
Yeah, but some were in there, and then others they were like a public. So it's just interesting. I mean, I would watch the meeting because it's not. I had to call and make sure that one of the emails got in that was not included. So, and it was the people that were here from Anclo Key. It was just not there. So.
I have one last board comment. I'd like to thank Mr. Dickman for coming and being part of, it's not the easiest job or
They were too easy on you the first time,
highest,
so.
funnest job, but we appreciate you being here, or at least I do.
Happy to be here.
Yes, it's good to have you.
Filling big shoes
Welcome.
with Regina, so.
Hope I didn't disrupt the
And you
meeting
can tell
too
we
much.
vet these things pretty thoroughly, and we're pretty, passionate in our positions, so.
That's fine. I'm sure the commission's glad you guys are like getting these things out.
I think sometimes their ears burn.
Maybe not.
We
I don't
wish
know.
they
don't watch our
followed our
meetings.
guidance.
I'm just gonna call it like I see it.
All right.
Have a great night.
We stand adjourned at 8:58.